Topping today's news, the Bahamas Consul General to Canada passes away today. The Minister of Immigration responds to the United Nations call to halt repatriations back to Haiti. Digital court recordings expected to help reduce the logjam in the court system. This is your Jcn Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Just before news, we learned of unfortunate circumstances coming out of Canada, as there are reports that the newly appointed Consul General to Toronto, Al Dillette, was found unresponsive in his apartment today and has been presumed dead. And moments ago, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Fred Mitchell, released a statement confirming as much. The statement reads, "I regret to report the death of Albert King Dillette. Mr. Dillette died at home in his official residence in Toronto last evening. He was discovered by Consul General staff when he was not reached this morning. The emergency services with the consulate staff entered the premises and discovered that he had passed away. It appears that he died from natural causes." The minister says he spoke with his wife, Kathy, to express condolences on behalf of the nation and the ministry. Prime Minister Philip Davis was informed, and he too has expressed his condolences to the Dillette family, the children and siblings. Mr. Mitchell says the Bahamas has lost a treasured son, friend, and brother. May he rest in peace. Just 2 weeks ago, on April 15th, Prime Minister Philip Davis presided over the grand opening of the new Consulate General office in Toronto, where Mr. Dillette, a decorated public servant, was named as the new Consul General of the first ever Bahamian embassy in Canada. He was asked, to oversee the consulate's mission to serve Canada's strong Bahamian diaspora, with his office just located adjacent to the Bahamas Tourist Office on Yonge Street in Toronto. Immigration and Labor Minister Keith Bell once again hitting back at the United Nations call for countries in the Americas and the Caribbean to halt repatriation of Haitians on the move, including the Bahamas. The call comes after the committee was alarmed of the alleged human rights violations Haitians have been enduring during their journey from Haiti. Our Destiny Johnson has the minister's response in our next story.
In a report released on April 28, 2023, the United Nations Committee of the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, CERD, called on parties in the region to suspend forced returns and adopt measures to protect Haitians on the move. The statement continues that the committee raised alarm over alleged human rights violations and abuses against Haitians at borders, in migrant detention centers, as well as along perilous migration routes in the Americas. Such obstacles expose migrants to assaults on their life and security, disappearance, acts of gender-based and sexual violence, and trafficking by criminal networks. The UN is requesting an end to the expulsion of Haitians fleeing Haiti and assessments of each individual case to identify protection needs in accordance with international refugee and human rights law, with particular attention to the most vulnerable groups. Well, with that said, Immigration and Labor Minister Keith Bell on Tuesday reaffirms the government's position that the country cannot bear any more illegal migrants traveling and staying in the Bahamas.
In response to these calls and local media reports, the government of the Bahamas reaffirms the position expressed by the Honorable Prime Minister in the National Address of February 2023, where he said, "Our small nation cannot possibly shoulder any more of a burden. We are standing strong on this position, despite pressure earlier this year when the United Nations called for countries in our region to halt deportations to Haiti. Once again, I decided to continue repatriations. The Bahamas is for Bahamians and for those who are prepared to follow the laws of our country. We simply cannot afford open borders. The infrastructure of the Bahamas, including the educational and the medical system, cannot support uncontrolled numbers of persons entering our country."
The minister goes on to say that the Department of Immigration has clear and equivocal mandates that the immigration laws must be enforced. Minister Bell asserts that persons are not permitted to enter or remain in the Bahamas without requisite approvals.
Persons entering or remaining in the Bahamas outside immigration regulations will therefore be apprehended, and deported immediately. In March 2022, Human Rights reported data collected from the International Organization for Migration showed that from January 2021 through February 26, 2022, approximately 20,309 persons were expelled or deported to Haiti from the United States of America. In 2022, the Dominican Republic deported over 108,436 Haitians from their country. In January of this year, approximately 16,892 Haitian migrants were deported from the Dominican Republic. Last year, the Bahamas repatriated 4,748 irregular migrants, including 26 Colombians, 58 Dominicans, 66 Ecuadorians, 125 Jamaicans, 1,001 Cubans, and 3,349 Haitians at a cost of $1.5 million.
For the period of January 1st to March 31st of this year, 230 persons have been repatriated. 590 persons have been charged with various immigration offenses, with 461 persons out of that number already convicted. Minister Bell goes on to say that the government has informed the international community of their incapacity to effectively process the continued influx of irregular migrants. To that end, Minister Bell says the only way to help Haiti is the gathering of resources from international states to improve their economic situation.
The government will continue, therefore, to ensure that economic migrants and unlawful entrants to the Bahamas are expeditiously processed and deported from the Bahamas. It is the long-held position of the government of the Bahamas that the international community must assemble the resources needed to provide Haiti with an economic package of debt forgiveness and aid to assist in improving its economic outlook. While a strong international response, led by the world's great economies, is required to help improve the conditions in Haiti and reduce the number of economic migrants seeking to enter countries throughout the hemisphere, fundamentally, the stabilization of Haiti will only happen if Haitians remain in their country and work to find a solution.
The only instance by which a person will be allowed to enter and stay in the country is through the application process. The government remains unwavering in their laws and stands against illegal migration regardless of the circumstances. For Jcn News, I'm Destiny Johnson.
A primary school male student is in hospital in stable condition after he was struck by a male driver of a burgundy Japanese vehicle who was fleeing from the scene of a shooting which police say had just been committed. Police are now searching for two gunmen who shot a 30-year-old male in the Fox Hill area on Monday afternoon. The male is in hospital in serious condition. Preliminary reports indicate that around 3:30 p.m., the victim, as he arrived at his home on Mandingo Alley off Step Street, was approached by two males who exited a burgundy Japanese vehicle, both armed with firearms, firing gunshots at the victim, resulting in him being shot multiple times. Police say as the culprits fled the scene onto Johnson Road, a male student from a nearby primary school was struck by their vehicle. Both victims were transported to the Princess Margaret Hospital in a private vehicle. Police are actively investigating and appealing to members of the public who may have any information as it pertains to this incident or any other criminal matter to contact the Criminal Investigations Department at 328-TIPS, 328-8477. As statistics show the increase in crimes in the Bahamas is being committed by repeat offenders, the government is currently in review of how best to manage individuals on parole following their release from prison. This comes by way of a new Parole Act that is expected to be tabled in Parliament. Minister of National Security Wayne Munro gives more details.
So the concept is that, okay, you did wrong. We didn't stop you. We couldn't prevent you committing a crime. You committed a crime. You've gone through the process, and then you're sent up here. As Commissioner Clare keeps reminding us, about 98% of the people up here are going to be released. So the issue is, what will be that condition? The other aspect of it that a lot of Bahamians don't realize is right now, when you come up here for most offenses, if you get 12 months, you only serve 8 months because you get 4 months back for good behavior. And you only serve any of that if you misbehave in here. What the Parole Act will do, it will eliminate time off for good behavior. So if you are given, currently now, when you get the 4 months off, let's say you come out at month 8, you go out and the very next day you commit an offense, you never serve the 4 months that you were given off.
Now, according to prison officials, at least 96% of the inmates at the Bahamas Department of Corrections will be released from prison. This new legislation will monitor how the individuals reacclimate themselves back into society, holding them accountable for their actions outside the prison walls.
What parole says is, yes, you will do your sentence and you will do all of it, all 12 months. You may do the first 8 months in the correctional facility, but you will do the other 4 in the community. So if we tell you, you can't drink alcohol, you cannot associate with these people, you have to go to church, which we could tell you. You have to get some religious instruction. And you refuse to do it or you commit an offense, now you owe us the 4 months. And you have to come back and serve the balance of that 4 months. So you'll be held accountable for each and every day that you are sentenced to. Now, if you serve the 4 months peaceably outside, then that's fine. But the thinking is, if people get into the habit of behaving because they have a selfish reason to do it because they don't want to come back up here, then they will continue to behave.
As for the status of the amendment, the National Security Minister says the draft for this new legislation is currently before the Law Reform Committee at the Office of the Attorney General, and from there it will be tabled in Parliament for approval. Minister of National Security Wayne Munroe also updating members of the media on Monday about the delayed construction plans for the $90 million modernization reconstruction of the Bahamas Department of Corrections. The goal was to begin work in January of this year. However, 3 months since that deadline, the project is currently at a standstill. Mr. Munroe says this.
That was the timeline set by the Commissioner. My understanding is that the person awarded is sorting out now the financing on it because it's being done in a fashion that we don't pay them up front, that they build it. Once they turn it over, we then pay them for the virtual court over 8 years and the correctional facility over 10 years. And so it's in their interest to get it completed on time. And when it's completed, of course, now we get to see that you've done it correctly while we have an obligation to pay you. So
the original estimate for the high to medium security facility was priced at $40 million, but has increased some $50 million to include a correctional institution, administrative building, inmate housing, and medical facility. Mr. Munroe added the following to his statement in regards to payment for the construction.
The persons who engage with the government on those terms would know that holds them also a little bit more accountable than the current circumstance. If they deliver you a structure built now, after the warranty period of 3 or 6 months has passed, the whole thing could collapse and dog eat your lunch, right? But if I'm paying you back for something over 8 years, 10 years, and the whole thing collapsed, then me and you have to talk, eh? So it provides a little bit more protection than the ordinary way that we procured. But in my mind, it's an improvement.
The minister says he will follow up with the Ministry of Finance on the financing negotiations for construction to soon begin. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.